Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here, and for the first time in 2020, welcome to a live commentary stream for a Formula 1 race. Yes, the season opening Grand Prix of Austria is upon us in just about 10 minutes' time. We'll wait for good talkback, make sure that we are actually broadcasting right now. And all that checks out. Good. Welcome to the live commentary stream, everyone. Just the typical disclaimer that I put up with all of these. I am not actually showing you images or video of the actual real-world event going on in real time, because that would be woefully illegal. Which means, dear viewers, if you do care to enjoy our live commentary stream and our live chat today, I do advise you strongly to position yourself strategically between your television or other preferred method of Formula 1 consumption and the sound of my voice. To begin proceedings today, we have the biggest story of the weekend thus far. Lewis Hamilton has a grid penalty. Why has this happened? Well, in the dying seconds of Q3 yesterday afternoon, Valtteri Bottas had already secured pole position. However, on his final lap, he managed to throw the car off the road in Sector 3, just bringing out the yellow flags for a few seconds. Unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton was not far behind Valtteri Bottas as far as the gap to the cars to each other on the road, which meant that Lewis Hamilton drove through a yellow flag zone in Sector 3. Now, Hamilton said, and this was actually corroborated by how the FIA runs their marshalling posts, he said that he saw yellow signboards flashing yellow and saying that there's a yellow flag out, but then he also immediately saw a green signboard saying that he had passed the danger zone. Hamilton, believing that he had passed the danger zone, did not lift off. Hamilton, by the way, did not set a faster lap, though, on that final attempt. However, in recent hours, the stewards have said, no, actually, we don't like the way you did that, so Lewis Hamilton has been given a 3-place grid penalty, thus demoting him to 5th on the starting grid. The final starting grid, as we shall see it for the start of the Austrian Grand Prix, looks like this. Pole position remains Valtteri Bottas, and Max Verstappen takes the second slot on the front row in P2. Lando Norris goes up to P3, and Alex Albon goes up to P4. So, row 1 and row 2, we've got some significant changes. P5 now, Lewis Hamilton. He'll start alongside Sergio Perez in 6th. Charles Leclerc does not change his position in 7th for Ferrari. 8th for Carlos Sainz in the second McLaren. 9th for Lance Stroll in the second Racing Point. And 10th remains Daniel Ricciardo, where he finished in Q3 yesterday. Sebastian Vettel in P11 for Ferrari. He's followed by Pierre Gasly for AlphaTauri in P12. P13 in the second AlphaTauri for Daniel Kvyat. 14th for Esteban Ocon, returning to Formula 1 for Renault after 1 year absence. P15 for Romain Grosjean for Haas. He's followed by his Haas teammate Kevin Magnussen in 16th. George Russell, the first of the Williams boys, in 17th. Antonio Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo in 18th. Kimi Räikkönen also for Alfa Romeo in 19th. And Nicolas Latifi for Williams. He is making his Formula 1 debut today. The other big story that we have so far from this weekend is that Ferrari are very slow, and not just any Ferrari car, not just the only red Ferrari cars, but every car powered by a Ferrari engine is very slow this weekend, and at a circuit that is very much dictated by engine performance, we have ourselves a big problem if this is what Ferrari are going to be for the balance of the season. Of course, this is coming off in the wake of an FIA declaration made after preseason testing way back in ancient history at the beginning of this year, saying that Ferrari had engine irregularities over the past 2 seasons, but the FIA have not decided to penalize them, but they have made Ferrari revise their engine specification to remove those irregularities. We never actually learned what those irregularities are. However, if it is related to the Ferrari engine performance, then I think we can see the ramifications of it here. Every Ferrari-powered car slower than they had been in qualifying for 2019. I have about 6 minutes to go before the start of the formation lap here. And again, to reiterate, for anybody just joining, this is not an actual stream of the race that's going on right now. We're talking about it. Therefore, please find your preferred method of consuming the race on your own devices, and then if you'd like to take part in the chat here, please feel free. Checking through the sources here, see if we have any more late-breaking news. I'm not finding any at the moment. Again, the big story of Lewis Hamilton's grid penalty has pretty much dominated the late-breaking action from the press. And then, of course, we have the mysterious lack of speed from the Ferrari-powered cars. I will say Lewis Hamilton's grid penalty does put Max Verstappen in an interesting position. He effectively goes up to P2 now rather than P3. And he is running a different tire on his first stint than everybody else around him. Max will be starting on the yellow sidewall medium tire. Everybody else in Q3 will be starting on the red sidewall softs. This, in theory, means that Max Verstappen should be able to go a little bit longer into the first stint than those around him. However, it may well come at a forfeiture of relative pace compared to everybody else around him. But Max likes this place. He has won here before. We shall see. Also, this is Red Bull's home race at their eponymous Red Bull Ring racetrack that they own. So if there is any pressure for Max Verstappen to perform, it's going to come right here. About 2.5 minutes now to the start of the formation lap. Sky Sports World Feed just going through their review of the starting grid now. Again, with Hamilton's grid penalty, it does lend the question of how Mercedes are going to handle Valtteri Bottas. Are they going to allow him to romp off into the sunset here, as he undoubtedly will, considering that both Mercedes cars were half a second a lap faster than even Max Verstappen's Red Bull in qualifying? Does that pace actually translate into race pace, or is Mercedes just that good over one lap and they'll be significantly slower during the race, relatively speaking? We shall see, but if winter testing was any barometer, Mercedes should be quick in basically all running conditions. Wide shots of the overall lay of the land here at Spielberg. We've got ourselves scattered clouds, sunny skies. Winds look relatively calm. I don't think weather is going to play any sort of variable today. There is rain forecast to be in the area tomorrow, but that is obviously not going to have an impact on proceedings today. But what it may well do is wash the circuit between Sunday and Sunday, or really Sunday and Friday, for the second race that we'll have here from Austria next weekend. Track conditions could be significantly different from one week to the next, especially in this mountainous region where little rainstorms tend to pop up out of no place as they fly down the hill and all that air condenses and you get some downpours. Tire blankets coming off all the cars now. The mechanics are vacating the grid. The engines are fired. The drivers are now left alone with their machines for the first time in 2020. Cameras on Max Verstappen, who suddenly finds himself in an effective second place. Very brave cameraman there has his camera in the grass, taking a look at the rear end of Hamilton's Mercedes. About 5 seconds to go before the start of the formation lap. And we have green lights, and the pole sitter has pulled away, as the rest of the grid will follow suit. Interesting stat here that I did not know. Valtteri Bottas has led more laps at the Austrian Grand Prix than any other current Formula One driver. Pole position here, he's about to add at least one more to his tally. The odd man out here from the tire strategy, as we mentioned before, Max Verstappen, starting on the yellow sidewalled medium tires. He's the only driver in the top 10 who is doing that. On a one-stop strategy per the FOM graphics, Max Verstappen should be stopping at around lap 25. Everybody else around him on the soft tire should be stopping at around lap 18 or so. Of course, these numbers can vary significantly depending on what the actual tire wear is. And we know that different cars and different drivers will do different things to the tires. Max Verstappen has won the last two editions of the Austrian Grand Prix in 2018 and 2019. And because of the very short lap around this place, Valtteri Bottas has already made his way back around to start-finish. The drivers will do their burnout routine. They'll have a set number of burnouts that the team have told them to do before they line up on the grid. That's to make sure that the clutch and the rear tires are up to temperature, and that the ECU knows where the clutch bite point is for the most efficient start possible. Bottas and Verstappen now forming up and stopping in their respective pole positions, and P2. Lando Norris stops absolutely on the marks in P3. I'm always amazed at how they do that. I think they do have one of their engineers sitting on the pit wall, spotting them, telling them exactly where they are, because there's no way they could see that from the cockpit. The rest of the field now starting to form up. Looks like the first 10 at least have stopped on the grid. And this is a feeling that we have not had for quite some time. The last few seconds leading up to the start of a Grand Prix. One new old name on the grid in Esteban Ocon, and one brand new name to Formula One in Nicolas Latifi. Latifi comes to a stop in P20. The green flag is displayed and the lights come up for the start of the 2020 Formula One season. It's better late than never. The lights are out and away we go. Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen leading each other away in formation. Lando Norris, though, with a good start, taking a little bit of a look at Verstappen into turn one. They are side by side, and Norris, I believe, got the position. Indeed, he did for a moment. However, Verstappen, with the superior Honda horsepower, manages to pull ahead once again. They will have a ding-dong into turn two. However, Valtteri Bottas already putting some daylight between himself and Norris and Verstappen. Little bit of jostling at the back of the field there into turn two, or turn three, whichever you prefer to call it, but I don't believe anybody made any significant contact with each other. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton is fighting with Alex Albon as they go down into four. Hamilton having to back out of it, Albon holding that position. I believe Hamilton is down to sixth right now. And we have got some three-wide action coming into turn 7. That's Charles Leclerc and Lance Stroll, I believe, going side by side. Coming into Sector 3 for the first time in race conditions. The order is unchanged at the front. It is still Bottas and Verstappen leading the field away. Lando Norris has consolidated P3 at this time. Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc fighting there through the final corner. Perez forced Leclerc out wide. However, he resumes without incident. The only change in your top 10 running order is P10 now belongs to Sebastian Vettel. Danny Ricciardo relinquished it to the German. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz now beginning to fight for it a little bit here. Leclerc is P7 and Sainz is P8. Sainz would like to reverse those standings if he could. Sainz having a look into turn 4 at Charles Leclerc. He thinks better of it, though. It's a long way to go in this race. However, halfway through lap 2, and Valtteri Bottas already has pulled out a gap of 2.4 seconds over Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton already 5 seconds off of the race leader. Hamilton remains P5. On board with Valtteri Bottas. Team radio to Mercedes, to Bottas, saying, please look after that car. Not only is that going to be in reference to making sure that we do 71 laps here today, but these same cars have to do another Grand Prix in a week's time. Race control has announced that DRS has been enabled. Romain Grosjean going wide at turn 1 there. Seeing Kimi Räikkönen with DRS on Esteban Ocon up into turn 3. Did not see the outcome of that maneuver. Meanwhile, Alex Albon, according to timing and scoring, has passed Lando Norris for P3, and now we see it. Red Bulls now run second and third. Replay of the start. The first two rows getting away in unison, more or less. However, Norris did get a very nice launch, and he did momentarily get the position on Max Verstappen heading into one. However, Norris ran wide and just did not have the traction over that green paint that Verstappen, of course, had from the tarmac. On board with Lewis Hamilton in replay of the start. Got a pretty good pull away, marginally quicker than Alex Albon. However, Hamilton is on the disadvantaged outside line into turn 1, and he has to take to the escape road. No harm, no foul there. Hamilton overtaking Lando Norris for P4. DRS-assisted overtake there. However, I have the sinking feeling that the Mercedes is tremendously faster than the McLaren. Cameras are following Lewis Hamilton around on this lap. His next target is going to be Alex Albon, who is about 1 second ahead. Hamilton may or may not have DRS down start-finish this time. We'll see what the gap ultimately is. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton, believe he has set fastest lap that time around. We'll wait for the confirmation of it. And indeed he has. Lewis Hamilton, 109.340, fastest lap of the race thus far on lap 4. On board with Sergio Perez in P6. That's Lando Norris ahead of us on the road. Lewis Hamilton in P4, 5.628 seconds is the gap at this moment between he and Valtteri Bottas, positions 1 to 4. Max Verstappen has pulled a little bit less of the gap between he and Bottas. 2.318 is the current split between those guys. However, Bottas is comfortably ahead. On board with Lewis Hamilton as we come down start-finish to complete lap 6 for us. Valtteri Bottas resets fastest lap of 109.159. Of course, remember, these cars are full of fuel right now, so we're well off of qualifying pace. Again, I am absolutely amazed at that pole position lap yesterday from Valtteri Bottas, a 102.939, I believe it was. A lap of a Grand Prix circuit in 62 seconds. It's witchcraft. I have no idea how they managed that. The Mercedes is finding grip in places it should not exist. In replay, on board with Charles Leclerc at the start. Good launch. Nothing too significantly faster or slower than anybody around him. Sergio Perez was off to our right there in the replay. Leclerc going wide through turn 1, as many drivers did on the outside line. And a replay again, Lewis Hamilton being balked a little bit by Alex Albon in the exit of turn 4. And on board with him through the same incident. There was just the sweetest of kisses between the right front of the Mercedes and the left front of the Red Bull there, but no harm, no foul, no problems for anybody. Sergio Perez, though, the Racing Point, the Mercedes engine in that Racing Point, did belch some smoke out there at the top of the hill in turn 1. Could be oil purge. We do see these engines smoking from time to time, particularly in very intense moments of heave. Shouldn't be a problem for him. We'll keep an eye on that. Another technical thing that I wanted to keep an eye on, though, for this race was the Red Bull DRS system. In qualifying yesterday, I noted, particularly on the car of Albon, but it was also present on Verstappen's car, when the DRS flap was open, the upper flap of that rear wing was oscillating fore and aft quite significantly. I want to see if we can find that again today. Meanwhile, Valtteri Bottas resets fastest lap, a 109.051. Lewis Hamilton is really all over the back of Alex Albon right now, and again we see some oil purge smoke out of a Mercedes engine, but this time out of the engine of Lewis Hamilton. Again, I do believe that is normal. We have seen things like that many times. Lewis Hamilton taking an optimistic look into turn 4 at Alex Albon. That was never going to work, and he was never close enough to do it anyway. Coming into Sector 3 now for both of these gentlemen. Valtteri Bottas, meanwhile, has extended his lead over Max Verstappen to 3.2 seconds. Lewis Hamilton with DRS on Alex Albon down start-finish. I don't think he's close enough to try anything into 1, and indeed he is not. However, he will have DRS once again down this little side straight between turns 1 and 3. Hamilton closing on Albon, but still not quite close enough to capitalize. Albon goes slightly defensive, parking the Red Bull in the middle of the circuit, as he is entirely entitled to do. Lewis, for a third time on this lap, will have DRS. And the speed differential between those two cars, one DRS and one not, is significant. Lewis Hamilton takes P3 from Alex Albon in the braking zone to turn 4. Hamilton now will be released to try and get after Max Verstappen. However, he is about 5 seconds down the road from the Dutchman. Probably can't even see him. That move in replay on board with Lewis Hamilton. Easy as you like. Meanwhile, the cameras now pick up Lando Norris and Sergio Perez fighting over 5th place. Norris has it, Perez wants it, and we're already working lap 10. We'll say, as we're used to seeing here in Austria, the field has strung out rather quickly, working lap 10 of 71. And we're already talking about multi-second gaps between most of the cars. Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel having a squabble over P10. Ricciardo had it and lost it to Vettel. Something tells me that Ricciardo is going to want that back before too long. We know that the Ferrari is way down in straight line performance in particular. However, is it any match for the Renault? We shall see. Sebastian Vettel in replay with a little lock-up into turn 3. No problem there. Vettel also on the medium compound tires with the yellow sidewall. So again, we'll expect the medium runners to stop at around lap 20, lap 25, around there, depending on how the tire wear actually works. And we have a Red Bull slowing down. That's Max Verstappen. Yes, Max Verstappen is going slowly and trying to get drive in that Red Bull. The car is running, and it does appear still to have drive. However, he is falling down the order. He's currently down in P11, and he's going to continue to drop. Concerned faces on the Red Bull pit wall radio. Max Verstappen cursing his head off on the radio, as you may well expect. He does still have drive in that car, but it appears that he is stuck in gear. Probably a low gear he is stuck in. The car is bucking like a wild bronco or a teenager trying to learn how to drive a manual for the first time. In replay, what happens here? He has a downshift problem heading into turn 1 on this lap. And the car appears to go into anti-stall. And he just can't engage a drive gear, and now it appears that he is stuck in a higher gear. Of course, the gear selection on a Formula One car, it's a hydraulically actuated process. The Red Bull is just crawling along. Verstappen on the radio says the car keeps going into anti-stall, and that would corroborate what we're seeing here. He's being thrown around in the cockpit there as the clutch cuts in and out. Verstappen does make the pit lane, though. This is going to be a retirement, surely. And Verstappen has crossed the threshold into pit lane. That means that they can work on the car now. We'll see if they try to do any quick fixes here, like changing a steering wheel out or trying to reset everything. There is a spare steering wheel going into the cockpit. Verstappen puts it on, and we'll see if it actually makes any differences. Red Bull do a tire change just for good measure here. Let's see if the car leaves the box. It's on the ground now, but it is not leaving the box. And Verstappen switches it off. That's going to be it. Max Verstappen, your first retirement from the Austrian Grand Prix. It made 12 laps. In the meantime, Lance Stroll has Sebastian Vettel all over his rear end. Normally, I would say that a Racing Point and a Ferrari would not even be in the same solar system as each other, but this year's Racing Point is last year's Mercedes, for all intents and purposes, and this year's Ferrari is last year's Haas, for all intents and purposes, so we shall see. Looks like Max did manage to inch the Red Bull forward about 10 meters out of his pit box. However, he is now jumping out of the car. Day done for Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton is now up into P2. He has managed to overtake Alex Albon. Hamilton is 7.5 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. And there goes the intrigue that we had in terms of the tire strategy for Max Verstappen. At this point, Sebastian Vettel with DRS on Lance Stroll. Not close enough to effect a move into turn 4. Verstappen in replay attempting to leave the pit box. He did get the car going under power, but it just would not keep going. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo coming back into the overall orbit of Sebastian Vettel. Vettel and Ricciardo both have DRS, courtesy of Lance Stroll. Neither Vettel nor Ricciardo quick enough or close enough to effect a move there. However, Vettel has a slight lockup into turn 4. Gathers it back up. No change of position there. Daniel Ricciardo looking racy behind Sebastian Vettel, though. He is trying to find a way past the Ferrari. I do fear that Daniel Ricciardo is going to be pulling off a move on Sebastian Vettel long before Sebastian Vettel pulls off a move on Lance Stroll. And of course, remember, Ricciardo and Vettel, former teammates at Red Bull once upon a time. In replay, on board with Sebastian Vettel with his lockup into turn 4. It's going a little bit wide there. Ricciardo had a sniff, but he wasn't close enough. Now on board with Ricciardo through the same moment. In terms of his strategy, Ricciardo does need to get a move on and get ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Ricciardo is on the soft tires. Vettel is on the mediums. And again, this is a fight for P9 overall. Meanwhile, the gap between race leader Valtteri Bottas and second place Lewis Hamilton has come down to 6.785 seconds. We'll see what sort of antics can play out with the strategy there from Mercedes come the first round of pit stops. Taking a look at both Alfa Romeos running line astern in positions 15 and 16. Giovinazzi in 15th, Raikkonen in 16th. Of course, Alfa Romeo with Ferrari engines in the back, they are also quite down on power this weekend. Kimi Raikkonen with DRS on Antonio Giovinazzi. Even with DRS, his car did not look significantly quicker than his teammates. Raikkonen on Giovinazzi with DRS once again into turn 4. Still not close enough to effect a move. And now on board with Daniel Ricciardo. He's going slowly through Sector 3. Do we have another gear shift issue on a Formula 1 car? Daniel Ricciardo is falling down the order now. He's currently in 13th. He's about to be 14th and lower. He's passed now by both Alfa Romeos. Ricciardo in 16th, now 17th. Looks like he is getting into the pit lane as well. In the meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel gets by Lance Stroll up into turn 3. Sebastian Vettel now in P8. Daniel Ricciardo has made the pit lane per timing and scoring. I think we're about to have our second retirement of the day. Daniel Ricciardo has made it to the pit box, and they are switching that car off. Kimi Raikkonen, meanwhile, getting past Antonio Giovinazzi. That is an intramural struggle there for P14. Raikkonen now has it. Meanwhile, race leader Valtteri Bottas about to begin lap 20. He is in a league of his own right now, 6.7 seconds ahead of P2 Lewis Hamilton. Other teams having issues with reliability so far in this race. Not the case for Mercedes thus far. Cameras pick up Lewis Hamilton through turn 1 as well. And there's your confirmation. Danny Ricciardo has retired. He is out of the car. Meanwhile, in replay, that is Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll. Pierre Gasly got P9 off of the Canadian. And now the cameras pick up Esteban Ocon, who is attempting to get past Kevin Magnussen for P12. Ocon has DRS on Magnussen, heading into turn 3. Doesn't appear close enough to me. However, he'll have DRS again heading to turn 4. Esteban Ocon taking a look into turn 4, however, not quite close enough to Magnussen. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton resets fastest lap, 1 minute 9 seconds dead. We have a yellow flag up in Sector 3 for some reason. We've not seen the reason. And Romain Grosjean, he has gone off in Sector 3. He's rejoining now. I believe that was turn 4, the exit of turn 4 where he went off. It's the same place where Valtteri Bottas went off yesterday in qualifying. Grosjean has resumed. And Romain Grosjean making some controversial comments yesterday saying that he thinks it's wrong that Lewis Hamilton makes so much money. I think Romain Grosjean there reiterating why he does not make that much money compared to Lewis Hamilton. Throwing the car off the road all by yourself is not the way to become highly paid, or highly respected for that matter. Meanwhile, Lance Stroll has pulled the Racing Point into the garage nose first. That is game over. Some sort of reliability issue there. He becomes our third retirement. Romain Grosjean, meanwhile, takes a pit stop here. Does not seem quite like a scheduled stop, but he goes on to the white sidewall hard tires. In theory, Grosjean could be good to go to the end. We'll see in replay here. He throws the Haas off the road. No, he doesn't just throw it off the road. He actually spins in the exit of turn 4. And that's how he found his way into the gravel. On board in replay, what happens here? Does he just pick up the throttle a little too quickly? Nope, he did exactly what Bottas did yesterday. He just touched the left side wheels into the gravel there just beyond the curbing, and it was enough to send the Haas into a pirouette. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc being called into the pits for Ferrari. This appears to be a scheduled stop. Ferrari were in the pit lane with hard tires, and they have now gone back into the garage. Leclerc was called in on this lap, or perhaps one lap ago, as the team radio that is broadcast tends to be delayed somewhat. Tire pressure adjustment perhaps coming late there for that pit stop on Leclerc. We've yet to see him in the pits. Hamilton radio. Just some housekeeping there for Lewis Hamilton. Team just reminding him to check some switch positions. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, has pulled that gap down to 4.7 seconds. High 4.7s, low 4.8s between he and Valtteri Bottas, positions 1 and 2. And there is Daniel Ricciardo, helmet off, looking on as a spectator, as one of the only spectators for this Austrian Grand Prix, it must be said. No fans allowed at the circuit. We will be expecting Mercedes pit stops anytime now, going a little bit longer than the on-screen graphics before the race start would have predicted. They said that the soft tire would last only 18 laps. Per usual, the FOM graphics package is woefully misleading. Our highest runner on medium tires right now is Sebastian Vettel in P8. On board with Esteban Ocon in P12 and the sole remaining Renault right now. 25 laps into this race, we've already had 3 reliability retirements. One does have to wonder if the overall lack of running so far in 2020 has made an impact on the teams being able to manage their reliability. Again, the last time these cars ran for any extended period was winter testing. That was back in January. January, February, that time. Long time ago, 6 months ago. Meanwhile, the gap between our race leaders there, Bottas in P1 and Hamilton in P2, 3.2 seconds. And we have a Haas going off the road at an incredible clip at turn 3. That is Kevin Magnussen. The car did not stop at all. The rear end locked up and he spun it into the barriers there at the rear. A very light hit against the barriers. I'm not sure if there's any damage to the car, but Magnussen is not attempting to drive away at this point. I would call that a brake failure of some sort because that Haas absolutely careened off the road. We were on board with Esteban Ocon when we saw it, and Ocon was incredibly lucky not to be taken out by that. The Haas just didn't really slow down. The initial part of the braking happened, and then it just stopped decelerating. I'm going to say that's a brake failure. We have a safety car deployed now on lap 26. Kevin Magnussen has gotten out of the car. He is totally fine. The car, however, is not. Mercedes in the pit lane here. On board with Valtteri Bottas, he takes to the pit lane. I'm fully expecting Mercedes to be stacking these 2 stops. And indeed they are. Lewis Hamilton, I believe, also coming into the pit lane. Bottas comes to a stop in the box. Onto hard tires here, and they release him. Lewis Hamilton is right behind. Off of the softs, and onto which tires? Onto the hards as well. So, absolutely identical tire strategies going on here with Mercedes. Ferrari also in the pit lane. Expect Charles Leclerc in first. Red Bull in the pit lane for Albon onto the hard tires. Lando Norris makes his first stop, also onto the hard tires. Problem on the left rear, however, they get him away before Carlos Sainz shows up. And we have an unsafe release in progress right now. That is Sergio Perez and Lando Norris almost coming together in the pit exit. Lando Norris maintains the position there. Norris is 4th, Perez is 5th. And yes, the Racing Point guys just not really looking where they were, and they're releasing Perez right into the path of Lando Norris. Norris was okay. Onboarded replay of that pit stop for Lando Norris. See how close it was with the racing point. And, of course, they cut away before we can see the juicy stuff. Meanwhile, the safety car is still out. Working lap 28 of 71. The field just getting themselves back into order here. Waiting some of the late stoppers to join the end of the longest line here. 16 car still running. Latifi currently is in the last position here in 16th. Currently the entire field on the hard tires except for P5, Sergio Perez. Now, with all the gaps reduced to basically nothing, this lends the question, what does Mercedes do with their two gentlemen? They're currently running 1-2, and undoubtedly they're going to have a 1-2 finish here today, but in which order do they cross start-finish on lap 71? And will they have any, shall we say, directives to anybody to determine which order they cross the line? In replay there with Kevin Magnussen, that does look like a brake failure. Find no other explanation for that. Scary incident, though. The rest of the field now starting to bunch up in preparation for the restart. No official announcement yet, though, in terms of when the safety car will come in. Lapped cars may now overtake. That's why Valtteri Bottas was just overtaken behind the safety car. That is permitted once race control allows it. Cars 8 and 6 allowed to join the end of the queue here on the lead lap. Working lap 30 of 71, still behind safety car here for an incident involving Kevin Magnussen. Lap runners have been allowed to overtake and rejoin the end of the queue. The safety car period is ending at the end of this lap, we are told. And yes, race control saying that the hazard is clear, standing by for the lights to go out on the safety car. And at this point, we wait for Valtteri Bottas to drop the hammer, and I believe he just did. Was that a little bit early? Have to make sure we don't overtake the safety car. And indeed, he has not. Bottas and Hamilton lead the field away to begin lap 31. Green flags are up. Now, with the entire field on the same tires except for Sergio Perez, the only runner on the medium compounds, I have to wonder why they decided to do that. We will not have any variability strategy-wise from here on out. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel has had a spin. That was contact with Carlos Sainz, I believe it was. Sebastian Vettel has now fallen to the end of the field here, currently shown in P15. Again, I do believe that was Carlos Sainz who got into Sebastian Vettel. We'll have to confirm that. Timing and scoring had not shaken out from the end of the safety car period. In replay, here we go. Yes, that was Carlos Sainz. In replay on board with Sebastian Vettel. That was Seb's fault. He locks up the right front in the approach to turn 4, and he just drove into the side of Carlos Sainz. That is Sebastian Vettel being Sebastian Vettel, ladies and gentlemen. And we wonder why he doesn't have a drive for next year. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc continues to run in P6. He's immediately behind the racing point of Sergio Perez. Incident between Sebastian Vettel and Carlos Sainz has been noted per race control. That usually means somebody's going to get a penalty. Meanwhile, Valtteri Bottas resets fastest lap of 108.736. That was on lap 32. Currently working lap 33 of 71. Coming up to halfway here. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez taking a little look at Lando Norris for P4. The racing point is quick, and I think we were expecting the racing point to be quick, and with DRS assistance on the McLaren, there's absolutely no contest. Lando Norris, though, taking another look back into turn 4 in retaliation. Not quite close enough to do anything about it, though. Perez has P4. Alex Albon will be the next target for Perez. Again, we had a lot of speculation from winter testing when we first saw this racing point. It is almost a carbon copy of the 2019 Mercedes W10, but we were wondering, would it actually be quick, or is it just a really bad knockoff? Well, it appears that the racing point, at least at this circuit, is very fast. Charles Leclerc behind Lando Norris. Norris has DRS. Leclerc has DRS. No ground gained. This is a three-way fight, really, for P4. Perez has it, Norris wants it, and Leclerc wants it as well. Yes, and to go back to that point of Ferrari's engines being changed before the start of the year, Ferrari had a workaround with their MGUK system that they had started to bring online in 2018, and their straight line speed per result was enormous. This radio there with Lewis Hamilton. Doesn't sound like anything too worrisome. Talking about engine maps there. But regardless, Ferrari had a trick with their MGUK that they brought online in 2018. Their straight line speed advantage was incredible, particularly in qualifying. And remember, at the Russian Grand Prix that year, they had tremendously quicker speed trap speeds than anywhere else on the circuit, as well as from anyone else. However, the FIA, at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, took a look at data from the Ferrari engine, and they determined that there were irregularities of some sort going on with the design and operation of the Ferrari engine, but they declined to expand upon that point, so we don't know exactly what Ferrari were doing. However, the FIA said that Ferrari has been told to stop doing whatever it was that they were doing, and now we're seeing the results of it. All the Ferrari-powered cars are slower than they were last year. Meanwhile, black and white flag for car number 8. That is Romain Grosjean. Romain Grosjean, who thinks it's unfair that drivers who are better than him make more money than he does. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton just 0.601 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton is an F-Man fan today. Valtteri Bottas responds to Hamilton's advance. He's extending the gap a little bit. However, Lewis Hamilton just reset fastest lap yet again, 108.164 that last time by on lap 36. On board with Charles Leclerc as he begins lap 37 himself. The Ferrari does really just not appear to have the outright acceleration out of the corners. Not even hitting 300 kilometers per hour coming into turn 4. Of course, no DRS at this point. A lap on board with Charles Leclerc. And the Ferrari appears to be handling just fine. It turns well, it stops well. But they are at a deficit in acceleration for sure. And I assume top-end power as well. Meanwhile, your big mover in the top 10, Pierre Gasly, he's up 4 spots. Daniel Kvyat up 4 spots. Lewis Hamilton up 3 spots. Remember, he started in P5, qualified P2. Lewis Hamilton now back down to 1 second behind Valtteri Bottas in P2. On board with Esteban Ocon right now. He's in P10. That is Daniel Kvyat immediately ahead of us, I believe. Ocon closing in on Kvyat ahead. Not close enough to try and move into turn 3. And we have just crossed the halfway point in this race, working lap 39 of 71. Ocon with DRS on Kvyat. Down start finish, not close enough to try and move there into 1. On board with Lewis Hamilton in P2. That's Valtteri Bottas immediately ahead of us. The gap is back down to 0.6. Of course, Hamilton and Bottas on identical tires that were put on at basically exactly the same time. Both tires are 13 laps old on both cars. Hamilton back in less than a second down start finish. Lewis Hamilton resets fastest lap yet again, a 108.058. Hamilton with DRS once again on his teammate coming into turn 3. Gap remains 0.6 or so between Bottas and Hamilton for P1. Hamilton is starting a charge at his teammate. However, will he take it through to its logical conclusion? We shall see. Interesting radio message from Mercedes to Bottas. They say chassis default 2-1. I do believe that would be a team order telling them that car 2 finishes ahead of car 1 at the moment. On board with Hamilton down the back straight. Gap remains about half a second between these two. We'll see if Hamilton continues to assail his teammate as he has been for the last couple of laps. Both Mercedes are now in the same camera shot. I think we are definitely seeing some, shall we say, tactically coded messages from Mercedes to their two drivers, talking about track limits and things like that. But I think what they're really trying to tell the drivers is calm down. Not only do we have basically half distance remaining in this race, but we've also got to do another race next weekend with these same cars. So don't do anything stupid, boys. We're on for a good points haul today. Beginning lap 44, both the Mercedes continue to follow each other line of stern. The gap is still about 0.5, 0.6. Supposedly, Mercedes seeing sensor issues on both cars now, per their team radio. Telling both drivers to stay off of the curbs. I don't think that that's really going to be affecting them. We've seen literally bulletproof reliability from these Mercedes since they started their turbo hybrid tenure in Formula One. The only track where Mercedes have had reliability issues in the past is actually here in Austria. And again, we have seen reliability issues so far up and down the field today. First race of the year, actually, so not much running so far in this year. Typically, we do see more retirements in the first couple races of the season because of that lack of knowledge about how the cars work, but here we are in July, still seeing big changes here in terms of how the cars are operating simply because we have a lack of running. Supposedly, gearbox sensors are acting up on both Mercedes cars. We just got team radio there to Lewis Hamilton talking about it. See if that actually has anything. As we had gearbox failures for Max Verstappen, it would appear, and perhaps for Lance Stroll as well. We still need to confirm that. Gap has increased between the two Mercedes men to about 1.2 seconds now. If they actually are having issues, they do not want their guys fighting each other, putting undue stress on the components. If they have any reliability concerns, at this point it's just about getting it to the end. They've got 10.5 seconds in hand over Alex Albon in P3. There's no reason to go crazy. Again, Mercedes reiterating to their drivers, we have a gearbox issue for both cars. Stay off the curbs. Yes, both Mercedes definitely have slowed down significantly. Bottas being told that he is in worse shape than Hamilton right now, reliability-wise. Mercedes very, very concerned about making the end of the race. One must wonder, though, is this a little bit of trickery trying to inject some drama into what has been a very academic affair? Seems awfully strange that Mercedes would just suddenly come up with issues when we've been dealing with 48 laps of utter dominance from them. Gap remains stable between the two Mercedes men, 1.5 seconds, now up to 1.7.5. Meanwhile, Alex Albon continuing to fall back relative to Valtteri Bottas, now 11.5 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Ocon and Kvyat going at it for P9. Kvyat has it, Ocon wants it. Both drivers on the hard tires. Working lap 50 of 71. Romain Grosjean taking to the escape road. He's currently in P16. Believe that is in Sector 3. Romain Grosjean is taking the scenic route back to the racing line. Now going through the grass. Haas out into the pit lane with the dolly. This is going to be a retirement for Romain Grosjean, undoubtedly. He has rejoined the circuit. He is in Sector 3. And one of the AlphaTauris has... Nope, that is a Williams, I beg your pardon. Williams is going slow. Who is this? Is that Latifi or is that Russell? That is George Russell. He had been in P14. He is going very slowly. George Russell has pulled off in turn 4. He's on the inside. That is a Mercedes-powered car with an issue. That's the second Mercedes-powered retirement that we have seen so far today. Yellow flags now up in Sector 3. Working lap 51 of 71. 20 to go. And there is copious smoke emanating from the back of that Williams. Safety car has been deployed for the second time this afternoon, working lap 51 of 71. Meanwhile, Romain Grosjean has taken to the pit lane. The car is up on the jack stands, and that is going to be a retirement for the Frenchman. In replay, with Romain Grosjean coming down into turn 4, what happened to the Frenchman? The car just went straight on. Perhaps another brake failure for the Haas. Double retirement for Haas, regardless. Now on board with George Russell, what happened? This is up into turn 3. Gear shift problem for the Williams. It just would not upshift from 3rd to 4th, it sounded like. Meanwhile, Alex Albon pits and out. Charles Leclerc pits and out. What do Mercedes decide to do? Do they try to make another pit stop, or do we stay out? Charles Leclerc now onto the medium tires, currently shown on timing and scoring in P7. We're on board with Lewis Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas is immediately ahead of us. And immediately ahead of him is the Mercedes safety car. Sebastian Vettel pits and out. He's classified in P13. There are only 14 cars still running. Attrition has been rather high this afternoon. Not entirely unexpected, though. Do Mercedes pit? Does not appear so. Neither Mercedes takes to the pit lane. Sergio Perez still on the medium tires in P3. Alex Albon has gone on to the soft tires. Carlos Sainz making a stop here for McLaren. Onto the medium tires, and he's released. 2.9 second stop. At this point, we have got Mercedes in a little bit of a compromised position. If the cars are not healthy, and they are on older tires relative to particularly Alex Albon, who just made a pit stop. He's in P4 right now. You've got Sergio Perez in the Racing Point, which has been reasonably strong today. How do you do this? You've got a car that might be braking. You've got a quickish car behind you, and you've got Alex Albon on brand new tires, one car behind that. This could be Mercedes' race to lose, believe it or not, after all of the complaining we've been doing about how dominant they've been this weekend. They are in an interesting position at this point. Safety car remains out at this point, working lap 54 of 71. Race control has announced that the safety car period will be ending at the end of this lap. We will restart on lap 55. Well, this is now going to be a waiting game if you are Mercedes. If you do actually have a problem with your car, it's about to be exposed in the worst possible way. Neither Mercedes made a pit stop during this safety car period. They are on the same hard tires that they put on at the first safety car period. Both the tires are 27 laps old, both sets on either Mercedes. Valtteri Bottas now becomes the de facto safety car. He'll wait for word from his crew that the safety car has crossed into the pit lane. And Bottas drops the hammer. Lewis Hamilton drops the hammer immediately behind. Green flags going up at start-finish. Green flags are up, and we are racing again in Austria, working lap 55 of 71. Valtteri Bottas leads over Lewis Hamilton. Sergio Perez and Alex Albon, though, are immediately in pursuit. We have yellow flags being shown up again someplace. That could be a timing problem here with the graphics. I don't see yellow flags up anywhere around the circuit right now. Gap is about 1 second between the two Mercedes drivers. Alex Albon over on Sergio Perez. Alex Albon up into P3, and we're showing that the safety car is back out and the field is slowing down. Alex Albon has conceded that position back to Sergio Perez. We have a safety car out, and Kimi Räikkönen is off on start-finish. The right front is missing from that Alfa Romeo. Kimi Räikkönen moving around in the cockpit. The front wing is more or less intact, but the right front wheel is off the car, and there is the wheel sitting in a gravel trap. Did we have a wheel nut failure? Was that wheel not on correctly? Or did we have a suspension wheel hub failure or something? Let's see in replay what happened here. Kimi Räikkönen coming through the penultimate corner hard over the curb, and the right front suspension has failed on the Alfa Romeo. The wheel came off over the curbs on turn 9. The wheel came clear off the car. Tire and wheel assembly all in one chunk. That looks like the wheel nut came undone. Yes, that wheel just came off on its own accord. I don't know if that's a failure in the wheel hub or if the wheel nut just backed its way loose. But the wheel came off. Right front wheel on Kimi Räikkönen's car. Meanwhile, Alex Albon had overtaken Sergio Perez in turn 3. The safety car boards were up, and Albon conceded that position immediately. That will be something for the stewards to look at. Kimi Räikkönen walking back into the pits. Unfortunately, this is going to be a rather long safety car period because the Alfa Romeo is stopped next to the wall that separates the pit entrance from the racetrack. And there is no break in that wall to get the car through, so they are bringing a forklift onto the circuit to take the Alfa Romeo off that way. The cars will be routed through the pit lane. That was very strange how that right front wheel just came off for Kimi Räikkönen. It had to have been the wheel nut coming off. I didn't see anything else break away with the wheel. It was just the wheel coming away cleanly as if the wheel nut was not on. I did not see the wheel nut come off separately, though, so whether or not Kimi had lost it earlier, we don't really know. The wheel hub and the brake disc and the drum shroud around the brake disc were still intact, so if the wheel hub had failed, I would have expected to see that entire assembly pull free, but that was still on the car and it did not appear to be damaged, so again, it does look like it was a wheel nut that came off for Kimi Räikkönen. We've seen wheel hub failures before. Remember Sebastian Buemi in China in 2010 in the qualifying session. He got on the brakes and the front suspension just exploded, and it took both wheels and both wheel hubs with it. That's not the situation we see here. FOM replay is now showing us the litany of retirements. And again, we have seen quite the rate of attrition in this Grand Prix. I believe we have 14 cars still running now out of 20 starters. Now, for Mercedes, this is probably a godsend to have two long safety car periods. They are dealing with some sort of gearbox issue. Whether it's a sensor or actual mechanical faults going on is a little unclear, but they are going at a very relaxed pace at the moment. Undoubtedly, that's buying them more time if they are indeed dealing with problems. Seven cars out of the race. Working lap 58 of 71. Safety car continues to lead the field. Yes, at this rate, Williams may well make the points here, and the only Williams remaining in this race is that of Nicholas Latifi, so that could be points on debut for the Canadian. That would be interesting. Latifi currently running 12th. He is the last car running. And again, the reason for this latest safety car period is the right front wheel coming off of the Alfa Romeo of Kimi Räikkönen. He stopped right next to the pit wall on start-finish, so it will take a little while to get the car out of that position. There's no gap in the fence to pull it through. Meanwhile, Alex Albon, having made his overtake on Sergio Perez just before the safety car was declared once again, Albon has retaken the position that he had gained prior to the safety car coming out. Albon now back into P3, Perez down into P4. Perez telling his engineer about that. Racing Point say that they're looking into it. At this point, we've not heard anything from the stewards regarding that action. Currently out of the race are Räikkönen, Russell, Grosjean, Magnussen, Stroll, Ricciardo, and Verstappen. Lots of attrition here today. Antonio Giovinazzi now the last car running in P13. In replay, there is Albon and Perez. Red Bull instructed Albon to overtake Perez. Safety car period is ending per race control. We can confirm that right now. Let's try this restart business all over again, shall we? Working lap 60 of 71. Race will resume on lap 61. We'll have 10 laps to the finish this time by. Lights are out on the safety car. Valtteri Bottas now becomes the safety car. Bottas has been very good on these restarts so far. When does he put the hammer down? Right about now, I'll say. He's been restarting in exactly the same place in all of the restarts here today. Alex Albon is all over the back of Lewis Hamilton already. Green flags are up. That was very close on the safety car line there, heading into the pit in for the safety car. However, the safety car was not overtaken prematurely. Green flags are up, working lap 61 of 71. We are racing again in Austria. Hopefully we can stay that way. The gap between Bottas and Hamilton is about 0.7 right now, but Alex Albon is all over the back of Lewis Hamilton up into turn 4. Does he try a move? He goes up into the outside in turn 3. Does he do anything? No. Hamilton defends that position smartly. However, Albon will have a great slipstream from the back of the Mercedes. No DRS yet, as the safety car period just ended on this lap. Albon looking to the outside into turn 4. He goes around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and he doesn't take the position. Once again, Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon come together on a restart, just like Brazil 2019. Lewis Hamilton making contact with Alex Albon. Albon off into the gravel. I'm not sure if he'll be able to resume from there. We've not seen, but Albon now classified in 13th and last. Lewis Hamilton has remained running. The gap is 1.4 seconds between he and Valtteri Bottas. Cannot tell if there's any damage on the car of Lewis Hamilton. I don't believe there would be. It was rubber-to-rubber contact. Alex Albon has resumed. He is 9 seconds back from Valtteri Bottas. In replay now, Alex Albon and Lewis Hamilton in turn 4. Who done it here? Albon around the outside. Hamilton ran out wide a bit. Albon had been marginally ahead. His front wing was ahead of Hamilton's front wing, and Hamilton understeers a little bit wide there. Rubber-to-rubber contact between Albon's right rear, and Hamilton's left front. Race control noting the incident between Hamilton and Albon. Lewis Hamilton getting an urgent message from his pit wall. Chassis 52 urgent. Telling Hamilton to go through some switch changes there to disable sensors. On board with Carlos Sainz. Up into turn 3. Making an overtake there on an AlphaTauri. I believe that was Daniel Kvyat. No, that was Pierre Gasly. Alex Albon and Lewis Hamilton officially under investigation now. Mercedes officially telling Hamilton now that they are seeing a gearbox issue on that car. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez in P3, he could see P2 before this is all said and done. Fastest lap of the race just set by Carlos Sainz, 107.974. Alex Albon has made it past Nicholas Latifi for P12. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc in turn 4, rather. Charles Leclerc maintains the position. Norris wants it, but that is how you race around turn 4 in Austria, ladies and gentlemen. Lewis Hamilton has dropped back to 2.1 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. Bottas continues to lead the race, working lap 64. On board with Charles Leclerc in P4. He's just set fastest lap of the race. Fastest lap now sits at 107.901. That is held by Charles Leclerc. Now, on paper, a Ferrari and a Racing Point really shouldn't be fighting with each other. However, given the Ferrari performance that we've seen so far this weekend, anything is possible. Right now, Perez is holding off the Ferrari on merit. It does not appear that Charles Leclerc can make any significant gains on Perez ahead. Charles Leclerc taking a look at Perez up into turn 3, and apparently he has made it stick. Charles Leclerc up into P3. Time penalty for Lewis Hamilton. A 5-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton has been confirmed by race control. That is for causing a collision between himself and Alex Albon in turn 4 a couple of laps ago. All Charles Leclerc needs to do now is stay where he is, and he will finish second. Meanwhile, McLaren having a squabble amongst each other. Norris up into P5 is the result there. Again, Lewis Hamilton has been given a 5-second time penalty. That will be assessed after the race. Wherever Hamilton finishes, 5 seconds will be added to his elapsed time. And as it stands right now, Charles Leclerc should be clear to overhaul Hamilton in the context of that penalty. Leclerc could close the gap a little bit more, just to be sure about that. But at this point, it appears that Leclerc should be well within that 5-second buffer. Carlos Sainz taking a look at his teammate there. Retribution for the previous lap. Carlos Sainz back out ahead of Lando Norris now. Except that he is not. That was short-lived. As it stands right now, Lewis Hamilton, with that penalty, will be off the podium. Sergio Perez will get Racing Point onto the podium. Hamilton, fastest lap of the race, 107.712. Again, if you do finish in the top 10, there is an extra point on offer for fastest lap. And in replay, there is the incident between Hamilton and Albon. Sergio Perez has a 5-second penalty. Why? Does Perez have a penalty for that overtake under the safety car when Albon let him through? No, speeding in the pit lane, a completely unrelated incident. Sergio Perez, 5 seconds penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Well, that could well put Lando Norris on the podium. And Alex Albon going slowly now. Albon going slowly. This is a double retirement for Red Bull, I do fear. The car is sitting a little bit askew there. Albon takes to the escape road at the bottom of the hill in Sector 3. And we have contact between Lando Norris and Sergio Perez, I believe that was. Yes, indeed. That was up into turn 3. Sergio Perez is still fighting Norris for all he's worth, even though he now has a 5-second penalty. Perez will be very angry at this point. It's best to keep your distance, Lando. At this point, Norris is going to find himself on the podium with Hamilton's penalty. This is going to be very interesting here. Norris is 5.1 seconds back to Lewis Hamilton here. Norris needs to find a tenth of a second here, and he'll be on the podium. I would say Alex Albon with that retirement, it was probably just stopping here so that they could make any changes they needed to make to the car for the next race without taking a penalty. Sebastian Vettel also getting into Daniel Kvyat there on the previous lap, but here we are working lap 70 of 71, and we do have a yellow once again. That is Daniel Kvyat. He has gone off. He's well behind the fences there. He has a left rear puncture, it does appear. Green flags are up. No safety car required for this one. I'm not entirely sure where he is, but he is well off the track. That may be up in turn 1. Anyway, on board with Lewis Hamilton here, running P2 on track. In practice, he may well be as far down as 4th at the end of this. Meanwhile, yes, that was up into turn 1. The tire just let go for Daniel Kvyat. That would have been at max speed. That was probably a bit scary. Show us the live action here, FOM cameras. On board with Daniel Kvyat. Show us what's going on track here. Hamilton was awfully close to Valtteri Bottas before we went into replays. We're working the final lap, and we can't see what's going on live. Working the final lap now. We're on the back straight. Will Hamilton pass Valtteri Bottas and take the win on track and then have his penalty assessed later? The Mercedes are closer together now than they've been at any point during the day, save for the safety car periods. Or are we just trying to have a formation finish for the cameras? If Bottas is going to do that, he's got to do it right now because he's rounding the final corner. There's the checkered flag. Valtteri Bottas does take the checkered flag, and he wins the Austrian Grand Prix outright. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line in P2. We'll wait for the penalties to be assessed. Lando Norris takes fastest lap of the race on the last lap and crosses the line 4th overall. Where does he actually finish? Lando Norris could well be on the podium, and he is. Lando Norris is going to be on the podium with Hamilton's penalty. We'll wait for timing and scoring to present this officially, but Lando Norris, finishing in 4th, has done everything he needs to do to score a podium, and indeed he has. Timing and scoring now showing the revised order with Hamilton's penalty assessed. Valtteri Bottas wins the race. Charles Leclerc finishes in 2nd, and Lando Norris takes a podium, P3 for McLaren. Valtteri Bottas wins the race outright. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris ascend to the podium, courtesy of Lewis Hamilton's 5-second penalty for causing a collision between himself and Alex Albon. Lewis Hamilton finishes in 4th, Carlos Sainz in 5th, Perez, with a 5-second penalty of his own for speeding in the pit lane, finishes 6th, and in replay, we see Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez also going at it in Turn 3. Lando Norris made contact with Perez in Turn 3 earlier on. Carlos Sainz there did make that position in the end. Well, Lando Norris appears to be somewhat satisfied with that performance. Driver of the day, meanwhile, Alex Albon has won that with a resounding 15% of the vote. Valtteri Bottas pulls the Mercedes onto the start-finish straight. So there are your top 3 finishers: Valtteri Bottas, Charles Leclerc, and Lando Norris. We'll wait to hear from our podium finishers here. Not entirely sure how the post-race ceremonies are going to be conducted. We're about to find out. Lando Norris definitely is a little bit excited about this effort. Valtteri Bottas getting all of his gear put away. Norris and Bottas greeting each other. Leclerc and Norris greeting each other. Probably one of the most interesting post-race interviews, podium ceremonies, whatever we're going to have here that we've seen in a long time. With their post-race interviews, they'll be hosted by Jenson Button, 2009 world champion. Let's hear what our race winner, Valtteri Bottas, has to say about all this. Well, Three Bottas basically saying that it was trouble all the way from Lewis Hamilton. There were so many opportunities for him to overhaul him. However, that did not come to fruition in the end. It's going to be really interesting to hear from positions 2 and 3, Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, because neither man finished there on track. Given the way Ferrari's been performing this weekend, I don't think anybody expected them to be on the podium. Charles Leclerc definitely seems satisfied with that effort. He totally did not think he'd be here at the end of the day. Once again, Charles Leclerc showing that he is the class of the Ferrari team. His teammate making a silly error and making contact with another car and pirouetting his way through turn 3. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc there keeping his head cool where it mattered, and he was able to capitalize on mistakes from the others. Meanwhile, Lando Norris, the podium surprise of the day by far. Lando Norris seems like he can hardly believe where he is at the moment. He's being quite forthright in terms of his personal assessment of his performance. He says, quote, "There were a few times where I really thought I fudged it up." Lando having quite a bit to say here. Apparently he can give the interviewers quite a few sound bites. And there they were, interviews with your top 3 finishers. There's Alex Albon at the FIA weighbridge. Have to think that he would have been on the podium given what was going on. However, he is the reason that Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris managed to get on the podium. He was the innocent victim of Lewis Hamilton not giving enough space in turn 4. Not entirely sure how the trophy presentations are going to work here. The top 3 drivers remain on the start-finish straight, and we have little plinths that have been put down with champagne bottles. They are down on the start-finish straight as well. Will we have a podium ceremony here, or will it be a trophy presentation? We'll see. And now the national anthems of Finland and Germany. Well, there is the 8th career victory for Valtteri Bottas, and it's the 2nd time in his career that he has won the first race of the season. Of course, by default, that means that he is your World Championship leader at the moment. And there is your winner's trophy for winning the Austrian Grand Prix. It is a scale model of a track map. Very nice. Appears to be crafted out of a single piece of wood. I like that. And champagne has been presented to the drivers. They all seem a little bit unsure as to whether or not they should spray it, but they have decided to do so. Lando Norris going down to hose down the McLaren boys behind the pit wall. So that was a rather interesting state of affairs, was it not? The first race of the season, and we've got some interesting action to talk about here. But for the moment, we have the prospect also of remembering that we're going to be seeing this again in just 5 days' time with more free practice sessions here from Austria for the Grand Prix of the Steiermark, which of course is going to be the second round of the championship. And for the first time, I believe, ever, we're going to have 2 consecutive rounds of the Formula One World Championship from the same track. So the teams obviously will stay in place, and we'll see another race in 7 days' time. So until next time, I do thank you all very much for joining me today for a little bit of a strange start to the 2020 season. It's the first time, I believe, ever that the season has started in July. But here we are. Valtteri Bottas wins the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll go through our finishing order for the final time, as everything is, I think, more or less confirmed now with all the penalties being assessed. Our finishing order here from the Austrian Grand Prix of 2020. Valtteri Bottas taking the race win by 2.7 seconds adjusted over Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris takes the final spot on the podium. Lewis Hamilton, he crossed the line in P2. However, after a 5-second time penalty, he is in 4th. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Sergio Perez in 6th. Pierre Gasly 7th. Esteban Ocon 8th. Points on his return to Formula 1. P9, Antonio Giovinazzi, and P10, Sebastian Vettel. 11th for debutant Nicolas Latifi, 1 spot out of the points. P12, but not officially classified as finishing the race. Daniel Kvyat, he was out of the race on the penultimate lap in Turn 1. He had a left rear tire failure. Alex Albon also not finishing, classified in 13th. 14th, not finishing Kimi Räikkönen. 15th, not finishing George Russell. 16th, not finishing Romain Grosjean. 17th, not finishing Kevin Magnussen. 18th, not finishing Lance Stroll. 19th, not finishing Danny Ricciardo. And 20th, not finishing Max Verstappen. We had a lot of attrition here in Austria today. Will the teams be able to solve these problems in 5 days to get these cars back out on track for pre-practice 1 for round 2 of the 2020 Formula 1 World Championship? All of that remains to be seen. Until next time, though, I do thank you all very much for joining me this morning. Ferrariman601 saying thanks, and of course, we will see